With us entering the new year, I wanted to go ahead and talk about something that is incredibly important to me, and that is not letting our failures define us. There's going to be a huge amount of us here who set ourselves up towards a goal for the rest of the year. Whether it's finally getting a body we love, sticking through with that new hobby we started, or not spending the vast majority of our paychecks on cheap takeout and DoorDash orders and actually investing into something smart for once, like gambling. Unfortunately, though, the vast majority of us tend to fall apart before we ever see the fruits of our labor, which fucking sucks. Now, not seeing the fruits of my labor is something that hits hard, especially for me. And the reason why it hits hard is because that was me. For the vast majority of my life, too. To keep it nice and blunt, as a society, I think we fucked up, and I think we fucked up bad. And the reason why is because we went ahead and demonized failure and turned it into something that only serves as a reminder for all of our inadequacies, which leads to a generation who is terrified of it. And it's scary because it removes the potential for growth for so many people because they convince themselves that they can never be the person they want to be as a result of it. For myself too, as a kid, even into my early adulthood, I let that fear paralyze me. I would so desperately want to be anything but me. I hated my body, I hated my personality, I hated the insecurity that ruled over me every single day. But most of all, I hated the fact that I could never truly rely on myself. It was like every time I found that motivation to actually try and make a change in my life, I would fail somehow, and that destroyed me. It just gave me another reason to hate myself and not bother trying because chances were, it always resulted in the same output no matter how hard I tried. But here's the thing though. Progress is always possible and there's always a way out. When I was at my lowest point, I eventually stumbled into a secret that got me out of that self-destructive hole I was so hopelessly stuck in. And today, we're going to be talking about it, all the while you watch me build this medieval house in Minecraft. Alright, so first things first. As always, I'm going to go ahead and open up to you about just how much my fear of failure screwed me up. That way, maybe you can understand where I'm coming from, or even relate to the position I was in. But to get into it, I have always been a super insecure and anxious dude for most of my life. I would describe the early me as a pessimist to be honest, and it wasn't just to be edgy, but rather because I just felt like failure as a whole was inevitable. It didn't matter what it was, I genuinely just felt like I sucked at absolutely everything. Making friends, getting healthy, socializing, let alone functioning as a human being the way society wanted me to. And I don't think a whole lot of people truly understand just how isolating it feels to even be in that position. It seemed like everyone else was able to effortlessly do the things I so desperately struggled with, and honestly, it made me hopeless. For instance, for the vast majority of my life, I was incredibly unhealthy. My body just straight up looked like shit, and I could barely stand to look at myself in the mirror. It was so bad that I'd wear hoodies in the middle of summer because I wanted to hide basically every part of me so that other people wouldn't hate my body as much as I did. I'd fall into these cycles where I get tired of living the way that I was, attempt to lose weight, somehow end up gaining a pound or two, and then just quit altogether because I'm like, fuck this is stupid as fuck. And I can't explain just how horrible it left me feeling every single time. You work really hard at something, and then you don't get the results you were expecting. You ask yourself, why the hell do I even bother when this is what my effort gets me at the end of the day? And so I continued to live my life growing even more insecure by the day. But what I later learned was that during the height of your insecurity, there eventually comes a point where you're left with two roads ahead. You can either continue to live a life the same exact way, essentially guaranteeing a life of self-hatred and insecurity, or you can at least blindly throw shit at a wall and keep searching for an answer until something inevitably sticks. And trust me, it will. There's this quote from Albert Einstein that gets regurgitated all the time. It goes something along the lines of, insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It used to strike me as a quote only corny people said to seem deep and profound, until I realized that it actually did have some merit in my life. Because even though I thought I was doing something different each time prior to every failure, the reality was that I really wasn't. I was forced to confront the fact that every single failure in my life led to me quitting. I never truly gave anything a solid chance. I always quit before I really had a chance to improve, and how could I expect change when I quit at the first inconvenience every single time? I'm gonna keep it real with you, facing that fact sucked, but I needed to stop lying to myself and truly be honest for once. I was the reason I failed at everything, and it's because I never faced that failure head on and embraced it. I just let it slip into the abyss without learning a single fucking thing from it, yet I still expected that change. And that's the reason why I was textbook insane. So, what did I do to not only make the changes I needed in my life, but also let go of that crippling fear? The answer here is pretty simple. I needed to keep pushing and not let go. I needed to just trust the process for once. So, let's go back to my life after coming to that realization. After months of failing at achieving the body I desperately wanted, I revisited the gym, but this time I told myself that I would keep pushing, no matter how little progress I did or did not see. And dude, that was nerve wracking. After consistently going to the gym and having a mix of horrible and amazing days, that fear eventually began to subside. I stopped focusing on that desire for immediate change and put my energy into the long term. After the first month, I didn't see a big difference at all, and I even gained a little bit of weight. But I promised myself that I needed to keep on pushing. And so the second month came, then the third, fourth, fifth, and eventually I hit a year. Now, at that 1 year mark, I looked back at my day one photos, seeing my skinny arms and wrists contrasting against my overweight and unhealthy body, and then I looked at the photo I took at that 1 year mark. Throughout the process, I didn't feel like I made a massive change, and there was many days where I questioned everything. But after looking at both photos, I realized I truly was a different person. I actually felt fucking proud for once. For the first time in my fucking life, I could actually bear to look at myself in the mirror, and it was down to the fact that I kept trusting the process and I learned from my mistakes. Struggling to change my body for the better was never due to my workouts not being good enough. It was due to my faith not being strong enough and not attempting to learn from each failure that I encountered instead of quitting. I could finally let go of that fear. I realized all the effort that I put in, pushing past all that insecurity and self-doubt, maintaining that consistency, all eventually paid off. I could take a breath and enjoy the fruits of my labor for once. I was one step closer towards being that person I wanted to be instead of being that scared and insecure kid who was constantly battling with the inner turmoils of his mind. And that can be you too. Having that success in my life opened up so many new doors for me. I started to have faith in myself. If I was able to work towards a goal many people told me I fail at, including myself at times, then maybe I could achieve much more in this life. Maybe I could get over my social anxiety. Maybe I could actually make decent friends. Maybe I could grow the balls to actually ask a woman I thought was cute out. Or dare I say, even be happy for once in my life. The point of all this isn't to tell you to just keep hitting the gym hard or do the same exact thing over and over again blindly, but rather it's getting you to realize that the only true failure in this life is when you decide to throw in the towel. We are the only ones who determine whether or not we fail in the moment, and we fail when we decide to quit. So let's keep on pushing. All the people I so desperately wanted to be all had the same exact capabilities as me fundamentally. There was no magic involved whatsoever. The secret they had was simple. It was the fact that they never stopped on those bad days and they kept pushing through. And it's the same exact thing for you, man. Whether it's starting a YouTube channel for yourself, hitting the gym hard to get that body you always dreamed of, improving your social skills, or starting that business, you have what it takes. You just need to believe it and embrace every mistake you make along the way. I know 110% that you can achieve anything you set your mind to, my man. And a wise man once said, losers only quit when they fail. Winners fail until they succeed. Be that winner, dude. But anyways, before I wrap up this video, I want to give you a little more advice and recap everything I talked about here. So first things first, when it comes to getting over your fear of failure or learning how to actually make a change in your life, the biggest thing you need to realize is that what you may deem as a failure isn't really that. It's just a new learning point for you, and it's up to you to learn from said mistake and keep on trying out new shit until you find a new solution. Secondly, remember, results aren't going to be instant. Don't convince yourself that you're failing at your goals just because it's taking longer than you expected. Like, it took me nearly 6 months to a year before I finally realized just how far I came. At least when it comes to working out, gaining weight honestly can be pretty normal. Muscle typically weighs more than fat anyway, so even though you technically weigh more, your body fat percentage is probably a lot lower than what it was before, assuming you're lifting. Lastly, trust the process. The biggest breakthrough moment for me when it came to actually getting over my fear of failure was learning that I was succeeding in the background. In other words, when I eventually reached my goals, I looked back at everything I did, all the hard times where I questioned the validity of everything, and I saw that I was not only learning, but actively improving along the way. It all just came down to pushing through towards that finish line even when it wasn't in sight. Like, I went from having no motivation to push through the hardships in my life to developing a no-quit attitude due to that revelation. And each mistake continues to roll off my back because of it. Even with this YouTube channel too, like, it took me nearly 4 months of pumping out content to even get up to 10 subscribers. but I kept trusting it and it worked out pretty fucking well considering we just hit 100. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope you got some use out of this, man, and if you're interested in asking for some advice, hit up the Google form in the description below and I'll respond to it in the next video. Apart from that though, I hope you have a great day and I love you all. Until next time, take care.